Good evening. Kathy Mortensen here with Equality Matters. Tonight I'm going to talk more about noble kinship and build on what I started Friday and build on the depth of what the Pope said on Friday. So, Friday in my video, I spoke about the highlight of my day. I'm not Catholic, but the Pope said God loves us all. Growing up as a Lutheran, you know, Catholics and Lutherans weren't supposed to get along. Lutherans were a derivative of Catholicism, um, founded in roots. We celebrated the Reformation from Catholicism every October. And of course, if you know me, you know I talk about not one thing being right or wrong. My overarching ideal is that religion and science both belong. They both have something to teach us and inform us about. There was a time when I wasn't even certain I was a Christian anymore. My roots for finding this God that loves us all really began for me in high school. And this is a long, long journey. So I can say, though, that the last few years, the Lord's Prayer has become my foundation. I know I practice both Buddhism and Christian practices. They serve me well. And before we begin with this concept about God loves us all and noble kinship and this idea in hallowing thy name, I really want you to take a deep breath. Breathe in, breathe out, because there's some hardness to what we have to share when we say God loves us all. It's not easy. So I'm going to begin. Hallowed be thy name. To hallow our name. And I'm going back to Aramaic from Neil Douglas Clotes and his research on the underlying meanings and how the underlying meanings, his intent is that we embody those underlying meanings of the words. Hallowed be thy name is to focus on the sacred light within ourselves and others, to make this sacred light visible and real in how we live. It doesn't mean we ignore wrongdoing, and it doesn't mean we sanctify someone's status, talent, or image. In fact, hallowing the name becomes most important when someone has caused harm, when these actions have clouded the sacred light that they carry. So as I go through, I'm going to bring up 4 different steps that people can take for hallowing our name as we do harm. And I'm going to focus on a case that's in the news recently, P. Diddy. There's 2 sides to every story. Every he said, she said story, there's always 2 sides. So I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm not saying he's innocent. I'm using him as a neutral example. Because when we get into Republicans and Democrats or religion or science, it really becomes we get filtered through our mind and our belief systems. So hopefully, if P. Diddy is your favorite, I apologize that I'm picking on someone that you adore. And I'm also trying to bring him into good light as well as we go through his trial. So we have to ask, how do we reflect our own capacity to harm? Not all harm is the same, and not everyone sees harm in the same way. Otherwise, how would we justify war and killing, even though the commandments in most religions are thou shalt not kill. But there is a kind of equality in the fact that we all carry the same power to harm, and we all carry the same power to heal. We might harm and heal in different ways. That's what's unique about us. But we all have that power. We each carry light and shadows. To hallow the name is to recognize this shared truth without shame and with courage. So we're faced with this public figure accused of abuse, and we're invited into a difficult tension. How do we hallow a name? By turning away from the pain of the harmed. Well, we don't. We don't hallow a name by turning away the harmed. We don't allow the accused also to be turned into a monster, because that strips them of the very dignity we say we value. If all human beings are loved by God, they all have value, no matter what harm they've done. So here's step one to contemplate. Separate the act from the person, but don't detach responsibility. We can say Diddy is a human being with inherent worth. And also, if he committed these acts, they are violations of that worth, both his worth and other people's worth. Both of those are true at the same time. Honoring his humanity, Diddy's humanity, means we do not erase his potential for change, nor do we reduce him to the worst of his alleged actions. We don't soften or justify those actions either in the name of his talent or his influence or his past good deeds. It's like being in the present moment, so to speak. To follow the hallowing of the name is to see the divine breath in all beings, especially when that breath has been misused or distorted. You don't hallow by excusing. You hallow by calling light back into right relationship. So to hallow Diddy's name is not to defend his actions, but to remember that sacred worth still dwells within him, and that sacred worth was violated in those he harmed if he's found guilty. But people are sharing their harm on the stand. We help hallow the name when we refuse to turn pain into spectacle or people into monsters. When we seek restoration, not revenge or silence. What is restoration about? Restoring us back to our light. What will it take after the harm for light to be restored? To do that, we have to speak truth, no matter how hard it is, and we have to center our own healing. Things to think about. Number two, refuse to dehumanize. Refuse. I work on this all the time. It's so easy for me to dehumanize another. It's possible to confront harm without calling someone a monster. In fact, on social media, someone had posted something about if so and so were in the middle of the road in the pouring rain in the middle of the night, what would you do? Would you pick them up or not? And of course, some people were like, I would run over them. I would it was there were many dehumanizing comments about what would happen to this person that they so despised because of the harm this person was causing. And I wrote, you know, and I'm not saying I'm better because I'm still working on it. It's just an example. I said, I would seriously have to continue to drive by. I couldn't pick the person up, but I would be strong enough and courageous enough to call the police, um, let them know someone was out on the road and that they are a lost soul, that someone else could do the job. I don't have to hate them. I don't have to dehumanize them. I can figure out a way to hold them while this person is coming back to their light. It's just a small example to try and share. And trust me, this is one of my weaknesses that I am still working on because today, my struggles, even with looking at what's happening in America between the two parties, is such a struggle for me. And I have to remember not to dehumanize one party over the other. So we're not here to strip Diddy of his humanity. We're here to examine the choices he made within a system that also enabled those choices. Drug use, how money is spent, sexual activity. Of course, we have two sides to is swinging okay or not okay. What all that harm is, there's a lot to sort through. We have to reject, we need to work on rejecting revenge or narratives that or use dehumanizing language, like to call him a thug, for example, is dehumanizing. He's a person who lost his way. In the Aramaic worldview, words like, I can't say the Aramaic word, nethspakwash, hollow, carry layers of meaning to purify, to align, to make clear what is real and sacred. And this speaks to the insight we're asking for. Hallowing means we sit in the tension between the light and the dark, between what's right and what's wrong. And we sit in that tension between truth and tenderness, with both justice and mercy, while keeping our hearts attuned to the divine spark in every being. And we hold accountability, not to destroy them, but to restore the sacred thread of life that connects us all. And I use the word sacred even as a scientific term because there are things that are sacred in science. I don't use it just as a religious term. Step 3. And I know I'm giving you lots to think about here. Step 3, stay centered on the harmed without making them the only focus. Mr. Rogers used to talk about this. His mom taught him, pay attention to the victim. Our priority is the healing and dignity of those who've come forward. Their stories matter, but that doesn't mean we have to erase the full humanity of the one they've accused. We can believe survivors without needing the accused to be beyond redemption. Justice is not the erasure of one side, but the restoration of truth for all involved. It's the hard part, sitting in the tension. So before I go on to number 4, we talk about number 3 a little more. I want you to start thinking of just one person. One person with a little harm. Don't do this with a big harm. It doesn't work to start that way. We have to start small. It takes the small acts. So let your mind wander there a little bit. What we're wanting to do is hold space for compassion without collapsing into excuses or polarization. Victim-centered justice does not mean that we're erasing the humanity of the accused. It does mean we're believing the survivors. We're prioritizing the survivors' healing and safety. And we refuse to participate in narratives that shift blame back onto the victims. But it also means in that space of compassion that we're holding space for the possibility that the accused is more than the sum of their actions, acknowledging that those who abuse often have histories of harm themselves, which does not excuse but can inform our response. The last, number 4, honor through honest reckoning. To honor someone in this context is not to protect them from the consequences. That's not compassion. Compassion is not protection from facing who you are. We all have to face our shadows and our light. God is in the wholeness. This process is to trust that facing the truth of your actions or someone else's actions is part of how we honor all of humanity. We honor the storms in life. We honor the joys in life. We can say, Diddy, like all of us, is more than one story. But if these accusations are true, honoring him includes expecting a full reckoning, not a deflection. To grow this idea, it is about one moment at a time. So here's where our minds can wander off. We get so anxious about what if, what if, what if? Like the solution can solve every problem. So I want you to stop, take a breath, and another. Relax into one. Relax into just one harm, one wrong where you've felt hurt or harm from another person. Don't pick something big, pick something small. We are in this shift to learn to pause. The change agent is taking us to a new level of awareness. And we can only do this one moment at a time, one person at a time. And it takes practice. It takes practice to hold everyone in this light of what began with our Father, our birther, who loves us all. And I had pictures up there of Hitler and Biden Trump, loves us all. What does that mean? There's a depth to what that means. So, my gift to you tonight is to think of that one person that has maybe recently caused some harm or some hurt and meditate on that person and ponder this hallowing of our name. We get to name the harm as well as hold that person in sacred worthiness. This person is both someone who harmed and what else? Hold them in that light. Separate the person from the behavior, but don't detach responsibility. Expect that responsibility. Anyone who's been addicted to alcohol or drugs knows that this is how it works. 2, refuse to dehumanize. Watch what you label people who are not like you or people who have hurt you. Use humanizing labels. Tell your truth, but tell your truth in a hallowing way. 3, stay centered on the harm without making the harm the only focus. There's a victim there. How can we hallow that also by honoring what needs to be restored, being honest about that? Is it truth telling? Is it diminishing the anger? What is it that needs restoring? And remember the number 4, honor through honest reckoning. Without honesty, we're diminishing our own worth or someone else's worth. We're putting them above us if we're not honest about what harms us. And whoever harmed us is more than that one moment in time. There's more to the story. Meditate on this person. Hallow thy name. Bring light to both people while we trust this restoring process. God loves us all. It's taken me over 50 years to embody what that means and what that brings. I'm just sharing. Thank you all. God bless you. Namaste. May you find something sacred as you contemplate hallowing thy name. Thank you for your time.